Good evening, everyone. I call the Marlington Local School District Board of Education regular meeting to order on Thursday, October 21st, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
United States of America,
to the republic for which it
for which it stands, one nation, under God, visible with liberty and justice for all.
That was messing me up. I was like,
The reading of the mission statement, Mr. Matt Mish.
Thank you, Carolyn. In collaboration with staff, community, parents, and students, the Marlington Local School District will develop lifelong learners who understand and apply knowledge and demonstrate excellence in pursuing the highest standards with effective intervention to challenge every student.
Thank you. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Dr. Mean, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gabrick,
Here.
Mr. Hagan,
here.
Mrs. Humphries,
Here.
Dr. Mason,
Here.
Mr. Mish,
Here.
Adoption of the meeting agenda. Is there a motion for the Marlington Local Board of Education to adopt the following agenda for the meeting October 21st, 2021?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any additions or corrections?
Yes, I'd like to make an addition to amend the agenda to include the first reading of the proposed non-discrimination policy, followed by a discussion, and that action may be taken. And I think, Dr. Mike, would you like to put that before or after an old business, before or after the Lexington update?
Probably after.
Okay.
And
Are there any other additions or corrections?
yes, I would like to move here at the beginning, the levy timeline discussion next. So if we could just switch 6 and 5.
Okay, is there a motion to amend the agenda to accept the first reading of the non-discrimination policy and, you said possible action?
Yeah, followed by discussion and
Followed by
possible action.
discussion and possible action under old business, which is section B, and the second to switch items 5 and 6 on the agenda to put the levy timeline prior to the student presentation.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on the amendment? Dr. Main, please call the roll on the motion to amend to add the non-discrimination policy and switch items 5 and 6.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mr. Mish,
Yes.
passed, 5-0.
Motion on the floor is to accept the agenda as amended for the 2 items for the non-discrimination policy and switching items 5 and 6. Is there any discussion on the agenda as amended? Dr. May, please call the roll on the motion as amended.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mr. Mish,
Yes.
passed, 5-0.
All right. Dr. Mike, would you go ahead and start with the levy timeline presentation and discussion?
So we have Becky Prinzhorn on the line. The board is familiar with Becky to talk to us about levy timeline. And Becky is good too if you want to ask about, there are a couple different types of levies. So I think that might be a good place to start.
Okay, Becky, we'll turn it over to you to give us an overview, and then we can ask you questions.
Sure. I am hoping I had shared with Dr. Main filing deadline charts for 2022 through 2025, as well as materials that describe levy options. So I don't know if you have those before you, but I'd like to start with the deadlines first. For 2022, we go back to a May primary. And if the board would want to be on the ballot for that, the overall cutoff is February 2. And when I say overall, I mean that would be the time by which you would need to have passed both resolutions with certification in between from either the county auditor, if it's a property tax matter, or the Department of Taxation if it's an income tax. So by February 2 for May 3rd, you would need to have all those pieces of paper together and into the Board of Elections by 4 p.m. that day. August election is a special election, meaning if the board was on with a question and was the only entity with a ballot question on, the district would pay the cost of the election. There has been legislation actually introduced yesterday that would eliminate the August election altogether. So, except for congressional races. So then your other real option would be November. The November election in 2022 is a little bit later than it sometimes is, November 8th. And then you can look down and see that August 10 is your overall deadline. You would need to have something passed in 2022 to start collections in 2023. So that is an overview of the kinds of deadlines that we have in 2022. If you want to be on in May and want to do an income tax, you can see there is also an immediate deadline for an income tax of January 21. So put another way, if you think you want to be on the ballot in May, you probably need to take your first action as a board in December, second action in January to get everything done in time for February 2. So now maybe we can switch gears. We've talked about timing. Now let's talk about substance and what may make the most sense for Marlington. I asked Dr. Main the other day when we chatted, are you getting close to the 20 mil floor? Because that really drives levy planning these days. And it is to the district's benefit to get to the 20 mil floor in both classes of property. So you would not want to do a traditional property tax because that would slow down this movement toward the 20 mil floor. You would more likely be oriented to an emergency levy, which is property tax based, or an income tax. And if you are looking at the first page of the levy option handout, you can see, as you look across, you see the term of years, how it's oriented, is it millage-based or is it dollar-based, the votes required in the statutory section. Emergency levies used to be only allowed up to 5 years. That was changed a number of years ago now to be able to go up to 10. And so if you are property tax oriented, a traditional emergency would be the way to go. There you are voting dollars. It's kind of like a bond issue. You're voting dollars, and then the county auditor will put on whatever millage is required to produce those dollars. If the pie increases, if the valuation of the district increases, the amount of mills necessary to produce those dollars is going to go down. And it will go down over time. Conversely, a school district income tax is an income tax, and it is based on where you live, not where you work, but where you live. Interestingly, an income tax, a school district income tax, could be for any number of years or a continuing period of time. If you look across the various columns, you'll see that since Marlington does not have an income tax currently, you have the option of going all income, which would be earned income plus income from trust and estate, or doing earned income only. And that is something that is very dependent on the demographics of a particular district. For example, if you have a lot of agricultural property, there you may want to look at an earned income only type of income tax. If you have a lot of retired folks, you might want to look at an earned income only income tax. And I think Dr. Main has gotten some analysis from the Department of Taxation on different percentages and what dollar amount would be produced under the two different types of tax base upon which the income tax would be posed. The final thing I'll mention is if you look back at the combined levy options, you can do a combined, and I'm on page 3 of this levy options handout. You can do a combined income tax and property tax levy. Now, it's the property tax part of that. It's really an emergency levy, but it's a dollar-based property tax. So they really don't call it an emergency levy, but that's what it is. And this statute was written specifically for a school district up near Cleveland that wanted to try and balance between property tax and income tax in one ballot question. We have had several of our clients try it, and none of them have been successful. I don't want to dissuade you from considering that as an option, but it just hasn't caught fire around the state, and I think that's mostly because it was written really with one district in mind. But it's out there, and it's something, since you don't have an income tax currently, it's something to think about if you wanted to balance between the two. So I don't know if you have questions at this point, or you want to mull this over and get questions to me later. What's your pleasure?
Becky, one question. Would you be able to get us a copy of that handout? We don't have that currently, and I think it'd be helpful for the board members to have a copy of that
Yes.
handout. So if you could maybe email that to Dr. Main and then
Yes.
you could disperse it to us.
Do you have the election filing deadline chart?
No, we don't have any of that, just the notes we've
You
taken.
don't have any of it?
No.
Okay. All right, well, I will get you both of those.
Okay, thank you. That would be very helpful. And then a question I had on the emergency levy, what criteria comes into play to qualify for an emergency levy versus just a traditional or a standard property tax levy?
There really is no qualifying condition.
Okay.
And I have to tell you this story because it's a true story. My mother, who is now passed away, lives over in the Jackson district before she passed away. And she said, Becky, I know you worked on this. What's the emergency? It's just a poor choice of words on the part of the legislature. There isn't any standard for that.
Okay.
But what is important is to understand what it is and that it is not subject to the reduction factors. You're only going to get that dollar amount. But it is not subject to the reduction factors, unlike a traditional millage-based levy, where, as you know, that effective rate is going to go down. And you're only going to benefit from new construction, if you have any new construction. And in really bad economic times, if your valuation goes down, then you might not get what the auditor estimated you would get at the beginning. So I can get you both of those things
Okay.
out and be happy to answer anything else
Okay, and then,
anybody wants to ask
yeah,
this time.
another question, if you could just explain where we are in regard to the 20 mil floor and what the benefit is of us actually reaching the 20 mil floor.
You're close, and I forget, Dr. Main knows better. She mentioned it to me when we were on the phone. I didn't write it down, but you are close. And what the benefit is when you get to the 20 mil floor, your levies, the effective rate of your levies will not be further reduced. They'll just stabilize.
So that would be neither an increase or a decrease to the taxpayers who are paying that? Is that how that works?
It would just stabilize and wouldn't be further reduced. So depending, again, on how valuations go, you would not have a situation where you go to 2 mills and then you really were only levying $1.5 million because inflationary value was subtracted out. When in 1976, when the reduction factors were put in law, the idea was to protect school districts from going below the 20 mil floor, because you have to levy 20 mils to qualify for state foundation, state aid. And so getting to the 20 mil floor and staying there is an important thing.
What other questions does anyone have?
Is there a limit how many times we can actually put this on the ballot?
What's the question?
No.
Josh answered it. That's why I just wonder if there's a limit how many times. Let's say in
3 strikes and you're out.
3 strikes, yeah, 3 strikes you're out. Just making sure, what if it doesn't go through? Then is there an option to go again, or do we wait? Is there a certain period where you have to wait before you put another one on there again, or can you just put another one right away?
From one
Are you talking about time
One
between?
election?
Yeah,
the
it's time
next?
betweens, yeah.
Did you get that, Becky?
No, I couldn't hear it.
Matt wanted to know how much time, minimum time between levies is there? So it just depends on the election cycles?
I don't understand the
If we,
question.
if we put a levy on and it doesn't pass, what is the time frame to put it on again, is his question.
You can put it right back on. I would suggest that you avoid the August election because it's expensive and it might be killed anyway before you would get the opportunity if the legislation just introduced passes. But there isn't any, it's not like there's, you were on in May of 22, you can't be on in November. No, it's not like that.
Okay.
Okay, and you said it was expensive. I mean, can you give us a ballpark of what the costs are for levies and bonds?
You would need to call the Board of Elections. They can tell you. The Board of Elections should be able to give you a pretty good estimate of what the cost would be.
Okay.
But you're going to have a lot of entities on in 22 because that's a gubernatorial year. You've got your state races. So the cost of the May or November in 2022 it would only be that August that would be expensive.
Patty, when is it that we have the renewal, the next renewal that should be on? Is it 22?
time.
Go ahead.
The first time we can put that on is November of '22.
Okay.
So you asked about the November renewal, is that correct?
Right.
Anything else?
Any other questions? Dr. Mike?
No?
Patty? Becky, thank you very much for providing that information.
Sure, and I'll get you the handouts, and we'll just be available for questions as you evaluate your options.
Okay, thank you very much.
All righty, see you guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
you.
Becky.
Bye.
Everyone else has left the call.
Is this that one?
There's only one on.
This one?
Yeah.
There you go.
Delay. That's good.
Okay, so as far as additional levy discussion, at some point, for the board to be able to make a decision, either way, whether we go for a levy or whether we don't, we would need financial information, updated 5-year forecast, what it's going to look like with the additional ESSER money on it, whatever cost reductions, that sort of thing. Are we going to go over that tonight, or is that going to be
We're hoping to finalize that next week,
next week? Okay.
and I'll schedule a committee meeting as soon as I know.
Because at this point, we don't have any updated projections to see where we are. Will we have any information on the additional Nexus money? Can you give us an update on that, where we are with the 62% that's being held, and is there any probability to what percent we would be getting?
That is scheduled for February. We don't have any updates at this time, and we'll have to wait to see what the decision is with the courts.
Okay. I think some information that we really need to look at in that discussion are items, going back, reviewing prior forecasts. If you go back to October 2016, the district had a cash balance of $9.6 million. That balance currently is at $14 million. In 2016, 5 years out, there was a $5 million cash balance deficit projected. That was for fiscal year 21, which ended with a $1.2 million surplus. Let me see here. Yeah, as I said, our current cash balance is $14,000. Following 2016, with that $5 million projected cash balance deficit, that was followed by 4 years of deficit spending, of which there was no discussion of needing a levy at that point. Yet now, when we have $3.3 million more in our cash balance, we're getting information saying that it's dire that we need a levy. I just find some of the numbers questionable on the urgency of the levy at this point, but I'm open to discussion.
Not for sure where you're getting those.
What's that?
I'm not for sure where you're getting
The
those
district
numbers.
treasurer page has the forecasts, and if you go back to, let me see here.
You're
which
talking
one
the
was it?
5-year forecast?
Was
is
that
that-
October 2016? Yeah, the 5-year forecast shows a $5 million deficit cash balance by fiscal year 2021. That was followed by 4 years of deficit spending. And for example, in 2019, our district's cash balance for the same fin sum as this month was $10.6 million. And today, as of 10/8/21, it's $14 million. So we actually have $3,356,954.40 more in our cash balance than we did at this point exactly 2 years ago.
I'm sorry, where are you pulling the 10 million from?
What's that?
It's on the FinSum.
The financial summary cash balance?
Oh, the
or
bottom?
cash reconciliation?
Okay, if you look at that very first line, at the beginning of the FinSum, that's our general fund.
Yeah.
There's 10 million on there.
No, that was from 2019, is what I'm saying. In 2019, that number was 10 million. Today, as of our most recent one, it is 14 million.
Unfortunately, I can't speak to what previous treasurers have predicted.
Well, yeah, and I'm saying just to, so people can understand how the forecast works and how those numbers aren't solid and set in stone. In November of 2020, which was in fiscal year 21, we had a projected deficit of $2 million for fiscal year 21, which ended up turning out to be a $1.2 million surplus. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the numbers. I'm just saying the way the forecast is put together, those numbers doesn't mean that's where we're going to be at. I mean, we went from 2 million negative to $1.2 million positive in 8 months.
From ESSER funds.
Well, yeah, part of that was from ESSER funds,
Yeah,
yes.
some cuts. I'm not sure where you're seeing a 14 million surplus, is that?
No,
I'm not
our
visual.
current cash balance, if you go
Oh,
into
our-
the FinSum right now, or
Oh,
the
our
cash
current,
reconciliation,
okay.
our current balance, not forecasted balance, what we physically actually have.
That'd be under the treasurer's reports for the meeting tonight.
But there are current encumbrances of 5.4 million.
Excellent point. To that, I would point out that 2019 with encumbrances, 10/4/2019, our unencumbered balance was $6,292,000. As of this current FinSum and cash reconciliation, the unencumbered balance is $8.5 million. We have $2,225,874.53 more than we did 2 years ago prior to this current financial summary. And that's with all the spending on fixing buildings and whatnot.
So does this report include the money that we received, the $4.7 million loan?
It
The
includes-
reductions to expenditures are included there.
Okay.
The money from
would
the
be
ESSER
income.
funds that we have used for existing staff, as well as the HVAC that all of you had said we can reduce that piece and keep some of those Nexus funds into our general expenditure rather than moving them out. That's all included in there.
Lease purchase and everything in the unencumbered balance.
So you said that would not include the $4.7 million lease, that it does not include those funds? Is
It
that
does not. It only includes our general expenses, our general fund. However, when we do reduction of expenditures, you will see it change our balance and change our forecast because we're using some of those for our existing expenses,
Okay.
especially the staffing piece that we used quite a bit for last year. So that's why you're seeing that bounce.
So are some of the payments included in the encumbrances on that?
Payments in
Towards
01
towards the lease purchase?
in the ESSER funds.
And on the FinSum calculation for the unencumbered balance, does that include, payments to the lease purchase? Or is that totally separate?
Correct, for this year.
Okay.
Those are encumbered.
Okay.
In 070, you're talking, correct? Because those will come out of 070.
Yes,
Okay.
1.070. Okay. Thank you.
And just to, if I could just speak to that, our expenses are about $2 million a month. So $6 million is about 3 months cash for us. I believe as I explore and talk with previous treasurers, there was a $10 million balance back in 2017, if I remember correctly. And then we were using some of that on some upgrades possibly to the high school, if I remember correctly. And then we had our 2.5 raises for our staff, which was a chunk of that.
Would have been in the end of 2019, the 2.5. Oh, you're talking about the yearly raises. Okay.
Yes, for the 3 years.
Yeah.
Do you know what the total is for that is? Do you know what the total amount that it came out to be in?
For the
With the raises of the 2.5 raises and everything, paying everything out?
I don't have that with me tonight. We have steps, which is about approximately 2, and then we had raises, which was 2.5.
Percent.
And do you just have an estimated figure as to what, I know you gave us some figures on what you thought you could reduce our costs. And I know the original projection was around 400 to 450,000. Are we going to be able to reach that, or is that something you're still working on?
If you look at the financial update, I have the grants attached to that and what exactly we've spent those on.
Okay.
And as for ESSER 3, which is the ARP ESSER, we're going to have about 600,000 a year possibly to reduce. However, that's great, but I don't want people to think those all come back on. That staffing is only for the next couple years. We have to absorb that staffing, as well as the health and wellness staffing, because that fund is also going away. So all of those will come back on. So when it does hit, it's going to hit us pretty hard.
So the cost reductions that we were talking about prior was not what was going to be reimbursed by or paid by with the ESSER funds. We were talking about overall cost reductions. Are we going to be able to do any of that? I mean, I'm just looking for.
I believe I sent you a sheet on the cuts that Dr. Mike has made for this year, and those will be ongoing. I mean, those are cuts he made.
I think it was close to 300,000.
245.
I thought it was a little more.
Yeah.
So 245.
So in your conversations with Ryan Gazzoni of Forecast 5, apparently, now here, he is someone outside the district who sat in our meeting and said, you cannot cut your way out of this. So do you have any, insight as to why he said that? I mean, has he looked at we've discussed this at length already, but, why he was indicating that? He was saying the cuts wouldn't do it.
When we look and we say we have a $4 million balance or a $6 million balance, it looks like a lot of money. But like I said, that's 2 or 3 months worth of expenditures for our district. When we hit 24, we're spending more than we're bringing in, which means that without balancing that budget, we're going to continue to chip away at that. But it's going to hit us when we don't have any of those funds left. And the amount that we would have to cut at that point equals 44 teachers.
Yeah. And programs too, huh? Teachers and programs.
Automatically
Just go.
Well, I mean, it's it's the board's decision what they want to cut, but it's easier to say, that's 44 staff members. That's
Right.
why he said, you can't cut your way out of this one. You're going to have to do a combination of something.
We also said to ask for a lot of money, see if that's what the community will give you, and then try to figure it out from there. I think we ought to make sure that we are very responsible with our budget, cut where we can, and if we have to ask for money, it would be for what we need, and not just say, we need this much money. And I think last meeting I'd asked for, can we get the details of what the money's needed for, the specifics?
ESSER.
I mean, is that something that, if we're gonna go to the community at some point and ask for money, I think we should tell them what we're gonna use it for.
Well, didn't we say like
Money's-
3 million last month? Isn't that what we asked? That was potentially what would be on the levy to ask for help to get that? That's your operating cost.
3
Yeah,
million a
3 million a year.
Well, and-
Isn't that what we just talked about?
And about, I don't know, somewhere between 75 and 80% of our spending is staff. Well,
Correct.
And that's every school district. We're a people business. So staff is obviously going to be, and we're actually pretty good with what we spend with staff. I've been in districts that spend more than 70 to 80%. But the money is, because, it's sort of like the levy's outdated almost as soon as you pass it. So then you kind of have more in the beginning, and then it goes down, as you see, it goes down, 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 and expenses go up, 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 up. And you have to remember, we want to be fair. We're a low-paying district, but we want to give our teachers raises and those, but you have to remember, a 2.5% raise is not 2.5 every year. That accumulates and gets higher, accumulates and gets higher, accumulates and gets higher. It's I don't know, do we call that amortization or something in the business world? But the expense, our biggest expense is people, and we're a people business.
Yeah. And we need those people to help our kids out.
And
so.
the district has made a lot of cuts to people over the years, over the past few years.
Our department, go ahead, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no. But I was going to say, we do need to commit to our public to be frugal, and Mrs. Gabrick is right there. We have to commit to that, and we do commit to that. But you can't want the best programs and the best of everything unless you pay for it. So if we want extra programs, if we want extra things, if we want less than 30, right now kids or less than 50 kids in an elementary classroom, you have to pay for that. There's a cost to that. Does that make sense?
A healthy carryover would be the 6 million for
Yeah.
3 months. When you get down to 1 month carryover, you're talking about possible cash flow situations with our taxes coming in twice a year. I don't think you guys want to get to that point. And just remembering that as you're putting that on the ballot, we're not collecting that until the next year.
Right.
So we're already a year behind.
Yeah. It's almost like you're living paycheck to paycheck, just waiting for it to happen.
So it's given us some false hope, and we've been pushing it out. We've been doing as much as we possibly can to push this balance to being depleted out. And even if we can push it out one more year, we still have to face the fact that we're overspending than what we're coming in with. Those expenditures have to be reduced. And 44 teachers you guys count them up. I don't know how we would function.
Yeah.
And if we wait, the levy, I've had Ryan analyze it, and I've watched it, that trajectory of, we're talking 10 mills in a few years. I'm not for sure we can,
We don't want to
it's
kick
just
the
an
can down the road.
urgency.
Yeah.
It's an urgency that we get this in place and figure out what we're doing. But I
Right, and I
think,
think where I'm coming from is, we've been talking about this for a while, but we still do not have the specifics.
what
we should be
specifics would
looking,
you like?
maybe we should be receiving, the 5-year forecast, look at that updated every month or every quarter, take a look at that so the board has some concrete figures, knowing that year 4 and 5 are, we can't really rely on years 4 and 5 because they don't come to fruition. We can't
Right.
we can't plan that far out, but we do need to look at our current spending activity and where can we, is everything we're spending and, asking the board to approve, is that all essential expenses that we need for operating? And maybe we need to be communicating that to the public. But until we see more specifics, I can't support anything until I see some specifics of, what can we tell our
We'll
community
have
that
the-
we need the money for?
Well, we'll have the updated forecast before a decision needs to be made anyhow, so.
We're trying to get that to you next week.
Okay.
There are a lot of moving parts and pieces. We just had a triennial update that changed things. We have the new formula coming in. We have ESSER funds that are affecting. We're piecing all of those together to get you the very best forecast we can. Remember, a forecast is just predicting, it's analyzing the trend over a few years and putting with that the information that we know going forward. And at this point, we know that we have ESSER funds. We do not know that we're going to get more ESSER funds, and I have not heard anything about it.
No,
So,
and they usually go up, or they usually go down, don't they, over time? Does ESSER funds usually go down?
well, the ESSER
They're not
funds,
usual.
They're a one-time.
relief.
Right, the co-relief, exactly.
so again, I feel like getting this money was a blessing, but it also gave us some false hope.
Yeah.
And when you look at millions in cash, it looks like a lot,
Yeah.
but it really goes quickly.
Well, it sounds like you guys already made all the cuts you can make for right now. I mean, how many more cuts can you make?
Not many.
I mean, what else is there? I think, Karen, you want to know what the, what the specifics are. What other cuts do you need to see what's going on? I mean, it just sounds
I
like
think
we're to a point where we need to make a decision about that, Like, if we're down to our last bit of cuts, what else are we gonna cut? 40, like they're saying, 44 staff members, potentially. What else is there to cut other than staff people? Kids programs?
I mean, the point is that for our community to give us more money, it has to come from their budget. So you're asking them to give you more money from their already established budget. So we have to be responsible to them and make sure that we have cut everywhere that we possibly can.
I mean, it sounds like that's what we've been doing.
We
And then the property tax, if everyone else just got it, got the letter from the Herald, from the county auditors about taxes for your own houses. This is gonna be crazy. Everyone's gonna see the cost of their houses going up and everything else, and now we're gonna throw this on here. It's just, we've already made so many cuts. I don't understand how we have to keep asking for more. What do you wanna know? That's where we're at now. We need money, right?
Yes, it's going to go for staffing. That's 75% of what we pay out. We have analyzed departments, we have analyzed contracts, we've done internal audits on our contracts, on our invoices. We are down to looking at printers to see if we could save a few bucks on eliminating a couple printers. I don't know what else to do. It's coming down to, if we're going to keep programming the way it is, we're going to have to find more revenue. If we're not, then we need to make some hard decisions on what we're going to change for this current programming. Those are our choices. I just have sleepless nights about this, but we can't. There's nothing else. We're almost done looking at everything we
That's what I'm
possibly
saying.
can.
That's what it sounds like. You guys have literally fine-tooth combed it to see what's down. If you're down to what you're ready for printers, like you're just very example, that's kind of ridiculous. Like color or non-color or whatever, or one big printer, one Xerox one, whatever, if that's what it comes down to, or you got a school printer now that's you're using from your house. That's
I
ridiculous.
keep wanting to bring good news, but I'm just running
Yeah.
out of things to bring.
Right. And as you said, with programming, if you lose that, then, students will go elsewhere. That's just how it's going to be, especially the high school level.
Correct.
They want options.
Yeah, they need programs.
And just to clarify, the facts I'm bringing up were not to say that we don't need a levy. It's just we need to be able to illustrate to the public to gain their support. Just like you said, we went from the November projected $2 million deficit to a $1.2 million surplus. And then you point out, we got the ESSER funds, but the ESSER funds for fiscal year 21 were 1.7 million, or a little over 1.7 million, correct?
The first ones, yes.
But that applied to the fiscal year 21 is what I'm saying.
Correct.
So if you take our $1.2 million deficit, surplus, $1.2 million surplus, and you subtract that, that still equates to a $500,000 deficit versus what was projected as a $2 million deficit. So I'm just saying, we have to, try to clarify to the public that, the forecast is a tool for the board to try to make educated decisions, and those numbers aren't set in stone. And, we didn't go from a $2 million deficit to a $1.2 million surplus just because of that. There was a lot of other things that were added in with that.
I can tell you, if you look at the grants
No,
that were attached, it's
yeah.
117,000 that we got in COVID relief, 151,000 in broadband,
Yeah.
394,000 in ESSER 1, and then in ESSER 2, it was 1.7 million. And we would have, what that helped us to do is go to one-to-one computing. But now we have to refresh those at a faster pace.
Correct.
If we get more computers, then we have to buy more computers to make
replace
sure
those.
that we continue that process.
Correct.
We have some online programming. We have, right now, I spoke to Ben, and we have old servers that's taking the brunt of this, of all of our internet traffic, and we've got to, So are you saying that we're going to see that reduction on our forecast? No, but that would have come out. We have to buy servers sometime. And if we can use some of that ESSER fund now to help with that internet traffic, just like the access points, we had to have more access points just to keep up with all of the traffic and expand our area of what we could do with that internet. Because, learning is inside and outside of the classroom now, and we've got to be ready and prepared for that. And that takes upgrades to our curriculum as well as our technology.
And right there, that type of information is things that,
Yeah.
we need to communicate in and show the community, what this is for, so they don't say, you're just asking us for money and you don't need it. So that actually helps illustrate,
The need for stuff. Yeah, I agree with that. Yep.
Additional things that we had was additional nursing services. What do we do? Is this the time to cut a nurse? Some of the stuff that was an addition, we're not going to be able to not buy hand sanitizer. Those things are sticking around, and we've got to be prepared for that. And our programs have expanded, our costs have expanded. You saw where we had to increase costs for substitutes just because, to be competitive. I mean, there's a shortage of workers, and that's going to continue. We can't get subs. We're having to pay people to cover classrooms.
Well,
It's just
janitors too. I mean, they help too.
fuel's going up, supplies, the supply chain. So that's going to be additional added cost to just our supplies.
I think from that aspect, community members are seeing inflation impact them as well. So it makes it harder for them to want to approve a levy, but they have to understand that that's happening to the school district as well.
Yeah, it makes it more tangible, so they can grasp at what's happening around us. And
The only difference is our revenue is not going up. We're not getting raises.
No.
right.
As inflation
Good
goes
point.
up, it goes down. So that's the only thing. We can't count on getting raises because we're not.
Right.
The other piece that we're walking around on this is our schools were closed for 3 months. There was a lot of expense we didn't have during those 3 months that that have to be factored in as we think about these. And we didn't run buses for 3 months.
Yeah.
We didn't, we didn't need subs for 3 months because we didn't have class. And there's some pieces, I think there's a lot of moving parts in this whole COVID time.
Yeah. And it can change in a minute.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
So-
and we had the cuts, and on to the other side, we had the cuts from the state funding.
Yeah,
The previous
Right.
fiscal year was close to 400,000, and last year was, what, 130,000, our state funding cut?
I don't remember exactly.
Like around 120, 130,000 for
Yes.
last fiscal year?
Started out, yeah. And that's another thing, if we get down to 2 million, what happens when the governor says it's not in the budget and you don't get 720,000, or whatever it's gonna be? We just can't get that low.
Yeah.
It's not good business.
And then when we get the third building up and running again here, more expenses are gonna come. So we're gonna need that help.
Well, not as far as staffing.
No, staffing, but as
Yeah.
for everything else.
Utilities.
Utilities and, Thanks, Patty.
This was productive.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right, so Dr. Scheffler, do you want to move on with the special presentations?
Yes. Actually, I love this part of the meeting. This is where we get to recognize our students. And for the moment, we're going to do this electronically still. So I'm going to turn it over to Ben. He does such a great job for us. And we will present to you Marlington's finest for this month. As soon as the projector warms up.
To dim the lights.
There it goes. It's coming, Ben. It's coming.
Principal of Marlington High School, and I'm here with one of our 2 students of the month at the high school, Walter Bungard. Walter is the son of Curtis and Carrie Bungard. He's president of National Honor Society, president of Rotary Interact Club, leader of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, a member of Spanish National Honor Society, and Character Counts Club. Walter has been active for many years at the Alliance Friends Church and volunteers in their youth programs. He is a member of the varsity football and track teams and is the 2020 homecoming Duke. In his free time, Walter enjoys scuba diving and training for football and track. He plans to attend college to pursue a degree in chemical engineering. Walter has incredibly high standards and morals and represents Marlington local schools with pride and humility. He has proven himself to be a great leader, both as a member of the football team and also as part of many school organizations, particularly as president of Interact. It is my honor to present Walter this certificate of award as our student of the month at Marlington High School. Congratulations, Walter. Thank you. Hello, I'm here with our other student of the month, Alexis Sabatino. Alexis is the daughter of Todd and Janet Sabatino. She has been a member of Character Counts Club for 4 years and has served on the executive board for 2 years. Alexis is the vice president of the National Honor Society and a member of the Spanish National Honor Society. She is an active member of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, Rocks, Duke Street Singers, and the Marlington Chorale. Alexis is a varsity cheerleader and the 2020 homecoming Duchess. Her hobbies include singing and acting, and she enjoys participating in the Carnation City Players musicals. Alexis plans on attending college after high school and hopes to major in computer programming and and pursue a career as a programmer. Alexis is an excellent student who has pursued the highest level of education offered within these walls. As a varsity cheerleader, Lexi's enthusiasm and spirit help inspire others around her. She is the epitome of a positive leader both on and off the field. It is my honor to award Alexis this certificate of award as Student of the Month at the high school. Congratulations, Lexi.
Good evening, I'm Nick Evans, middle school principal, here with our October Students of the Month. With me now is 8th grader Ava Jakalka. Ava is the daughter of Marissa and Jason. Ava is new to Marlington this year, and she loves all of her classes so far, so she doesn't have a favorite yet. She likes drawing and playing soccer, and she really enjoys visiting her best friend in Cleveland. Ava's teachers had this to share about her. Ava is extremely diligent. She comes to class prepared, offers insightful comments during discussions. Ava is one of the most welcoming students I've ever seen, said another teacher. She makes everyone around her feel good. Just the other day, she welcomed a student back, talked with them during arrival, and really made this young lady feel welcome in her return to school. She gets along with all the students in the class and doesn't care who she works with. She'll work with anyone, she'll help anyone. She's well-mannered with please and thank yous, and always presents a smiling face. She's an extremely hard worker and uses her resources to be a problem solver. Another teacher said Ava is very polite, hardworking, and very kind to others. Yet another teacher said Ava is a phenomenal student, always willing to assist others. She'll work as hard as she is pushed without hesitation or complaint. She loves to learn and is the epitome of a student with a growth mindset. Congratulations, Ava. Keep up the great work. With me now is our student of the month for the month of October, 8th grader Enrique Diaz. Enrique is the son of Maria Diaz. His favorite classes are life skills, math, and reading. Enrique enjoys playing soccer and hanging out with friends. He's really looking forward to visiting his aunt and cousins later this fall. He also enjoys reading, and so far, The Fever Code is his favorite book. His teachers have this to share about him. Enrique is a hardworking and successful 8th grader. He always has a positive attitude. He makes sure that he gets better every day. Another teacher shared that Enrique is loved by his peers. He is also a willing participant in class and does well with his work. You can always count him to be smiling in the classroom. Another teacher, Enrique is such a polite and hardworking student. He's conscientious about staying on top of his work and earning the best grades possible. He has a great personality. Both his teachers and fellow classmates enjoy being around him. Enrique has a smile that will light up the room. He brings a positive attitude to class every day and strikes the perfect balance between socializing and getting his work done. He knows when to work and when it's time to socialize and help others in the class. Congratulations, Enrique. Keep smiling. Good job. Thank you.
Hello, Lexington families. My name is Ashley Weber, and I am the new principal at Lexington. And I am so excited to introduce Shelby Odie, our Kiwanis October Student of the Month. If you don't know anything about Shelby, her teachers say that she is a great student who participates in class, encourages others, and is always eager to learn more. She knows the meaning of hard work on and off the court. Shelby is also a kind and respectful student, and she enjoys helping others. She loves math and science, and I asked Shelby what she'd want people to know about her, and is that she loves soccer. She'd love to meet Alex Morgan, and she plays soccer for Canton United and Eagles Select. So we are excited to award Shelby the Kiwanis October Student of the Month. Congratulations, Shelby. There you go.
Hello, Marlington. I am Mrs. Mort. I'm the principal of Barber Elementary, and I am here to introduce to you Mr. Tyler Klossner. He is our Kiwanis Student of the Month for October. I want to share some things about Tyler from his teachers. Tyler was chosen for Kiwanis Student of the Month for October based on his ability to adhere to our Marlboro Duke Pride expectations. In class, Tyler is on task and ready to learn. He is kind and supportive of his classmates, and he takes his time with assignments. When given a task, Tyler is sure to produce high-quality work. The 5th grade teachers are excited to see what Tyler has in store for this school year. Congratulations, Tyler. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about Tyler. His favorite subject is math, and his family is very important to him. He lives with mom, his dad, his sister, his cat, and his dog, and they like to do family activities, especially go on snowboarding trips. For his future, he would like to be a professional soccer player. He wants to travel to England, Spain, and Barcelona, and he would like to one day be Messi. The last thing about Tyler, if you haven't already noticed, he loves soccer. It's his talent, his hobby, and his passion, and he practices it at least 3 times a week. He's played soccer for 8 years, and the last 4 were club soccer. And again, I want to congratulate Tyler, Student of the Month, Kiwanis Student of the Month for October. Good job, Tyler.
Good evening. I'd like to introduce our Kiwanis Student of the Month for Washington Elementary, Mr. Zane Betts. Zane is an excellent student with a thoughtful and kind heart. He is helpful and often thinks of others. Some things about Zane: he has a pet rabbit at home, and he enjoys animals. In fact, he really wants to be a farmer when he's done with high school. He lives at home with his mom, dad, and his brother. He enjoys helping his dad at his excavating business. Zane's favorite subject in school is reading. He lives along with his mom, dad, and brother at home. He also has a cat, and he likes to go to his dad's excavating business and drive the equipment when he has free time. Like I said, Zane would like to be a farmer when he's done with school. He is a member of the FFA and would like to be part of that when he's in high school. He likes to garden. It's his favorite hobby. And in the summers, he likes to help his dad in his business. Congratulations, Zane. Nice job.
Congratulations to all of our Dukes. And we will move on to public participation.
I received no request for public participation tonight.
Thank you. Old business, Dr. Schruffler update on Lexington Elementary School.
Okay, good evening again, everyone. Lexington Elementary, I'm happy to say, we are ready to open on Thursday. So Thursday, we will open for our students. Lexington students, remember, they will not have school on Tuesday or Wednesday, so that our teachers can prepare and get their rooms. We want it to look like the first day of school for those kids, and roll out the proverbial red carpet for them. The roof is done, all complete. There are some touch-ups that we are doing as we speak today, tomorrow, through the weekend, to get the building to where it needs to be. And then, of course, there's some cleanup, obviously some dust and dirt and things lying around that have to be all cleaned up. But all in all, we are ready and we're excited, and we can move to the next stage with opening Lexington.
Thank you. Under old business, non-discrimination policy, I'll turn this over to Mr. Hagan.
Thank you. I'd just like to start off with a statement. In the beginning of August, I asked for a non-discrimination policy that addressed concerns with CRT to be added to the agenda. It was met with resistance, but was added to the agenda. Less than 2 days before that very meeting on August 19th, a resolution to eliminate then current board counsel was added to the final agenda at the request of Mrs. Humphreys, which I also should point out that according to her, she obtained from Mary Jo Slick, legal counsel of the Stark County Education Service Center. That legal counsel that council resolution subsequently passed with yes votes from board members Humphreys, Mason, and Mish. This legal resolution was placed ahead of the discussion on critical race theory. The proposed non-discrimination policy dealing with CRT was not even attached to the final agenda. And as a direct result of the vote to change legal counsel in the subsequent September 16th regular board meeting, the Marlington School Board's new legal counsel through the ESC opted only to speak in executive session with the board and not in public session. I am bound by law to not talk in public about matters discussed in executive session. The fact that the legal opinion cannot be discussed openly in public may be an insight for the public on where the Stark County ESC stands on the issue of critical race theory. And even though I'm not allowed by law to talk about what we discussed in executive session, I can legally make the public aware of the fact that the Stark County ESC, as well as a slew of other taxpayer-funded entities, are part of a partnership in the so-called Dismantling Racism Coalition of Stark County, which in August of this year proudly announced the launch of their so-called Unity Challenge, in which participants are educated on how to create more effective social justice habits, particularly those dealing with issues of race, power, privilege, and leadership. The program boasts that for a 3-week period, participants will receive propaganda that delves into how systemic racism is purportedly embedded in education, housing, public health, racial identity, privilege, and more, while also making the claim that it is nonpartisan curriculum appropriate for teens and adults. I'm not aware if they even obtain consent for participation of minors. Anyhow, I think we may be able to draw a pretty clear picture from the Stark County ESC's partnership with this coalition on where the Stark County ESC may stand on critical race theory and what type of legal advice the Marlington School Board, as well as every other district that they represent, may receive under their guidance on this and other critical issues that affect the education of our school district's children. Thank you. I'd like to read for the first reading of the updated non-discrimination policy combating race and sex stereotyping. This is the same one that I had read prior, but it was not the first reading and there was no vote held. A1, no district employee, subcontracted employee, volunteer, or any other person permitted by the district to teach or make presentations while acting in his or her official capacity shall provide any survey, instructional material, or other information to any student promoting, keyword, the following. A, that one race or sex is inherently superior to another race or sex. B, that an individual, by virtue of his or her race or sex, is inherently racist, sexist, biased, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. C, that an individual should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment solely or partly because of his or her race or sex. D, that members of one race or sex cannot and should not attempt to treat others without respect to race or sex. E, that an individual's moral character is necessarily determined by his or her race or sex. F, that an individual, by virtue of his or her race or sex, bears responsibility for actions committed in the past or present by other members of the same race or sex. G, that any individual should feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress on account of his or her race or sex. H, that meritocracy or traits such as hard work ethic, financial responsibility, natural marriage, good parenting, respect for the law, and other categories are racist or sexist or were created by a particular race or sex to oppress another race or sex. Part 2, for purposes of this policy, the term sex shall have its scientific and traditional meaning of the status of being male or female as biologically determined before birth at the DNA level.
Is there a motion to approve the first reading of the non-discrimination policy combating race and sex stereotyping?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion?
I'd just like to say that, the law doesn't change according to who your attorney is. So, to imply that, you're going to get one answer from one attorney and one answer from another attorney is erroneous. I think that this is something that is, like, we're looking for a fight here by putting things out that is already covered and largely in board policies we already have in place. And I think that it's wise to not muddy those waters. And, you know, personally, I am not for critical race theory, but I do not believe that it's come to Marlington to, you know, this extent, this big, you know, like plot and what might be happening in New York or California. It's not happening here at this point, and this is what's important in knowing staff and having relationship with staff and, you know, knowing who they are and where they're coming from, and them knowing the community's convictions and standards. And and the other thing I remember Dr. Mike saying is, how do you enforce this and how do you know? I mean, we hear what is happening in the classrooms from students. So if something is kind of out of line, you know, and we all have examples of that, that's happened in years past and even recently, you hear about it, you know, and then that can be addressed. So, first of all, the whole respect, you know, for human beings, that starts in the home too, and is demonstrated there and by parents. And so I don't want to complicate things more in that regard. But again, personally, I'm not for critical race theory, but I don't want to complicate things for our staff and muddy the waters.
Well, I believe that creating a policy is detrimental to prevent this from happening. A lot of other districts, even ones that have made statements against critical race theory, just this last week, I saw an Ohio school where a teacher was promoting some tenets of critical race theory in books to students. And a policy would work similar to a law. Do laws stop crime from happening? Not always. But having a policy would make it clear that it would not be tolerated or promoted in our school district. And I think that that is vital. And I don't know which policies are you saying that already cover this? Oh, and sorry, as far as enforcement as well, how do we enforce other policies that we have?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you hear from students if something is off.
And therefore, let's throw an example out there. We don't have a policy on this now, specifically. Which policy would you apply to the situation if we do have a case tomorrow where a teacher is teaching kids in class tenets of critical race theory?
Well, I'm not prepared because I didn't know you were doing this.
We've been
But we
talking
do
about
have-
it.
But it was not on the agenda.
Yeah, and it should have been.
Okay, well, I'm not prepared because I didn't know that it was going to be talked about.
Okay.
If the problem's critical race theory, why doesn't it say critical race theory in it?
That?
If the problem is teaching critical race theory, why isn't this just a policy that says Marlington School District will not teach critical race theory?
The reason for that, Scott, I thought I made that clear at the last meeting when I read it, was this deals with the tenets of critical race theory that people have concerns with. Critical race theory from one person to the other has multiple different meanings. And these are the tenets that people are concerned with, and that's specifically why
And
they're in the policy.
so this could be brought in to talk about other things other than critical race theory then?
Such as?
I don't know. I haven't thought about it, but since you're not putting critical race theory
Well,
in here, I could put
whether
in-
it's critical race theory or any other material, I think it would apply equally in a positive way.
I
don't see any good way of promoting any of the line items in this policy under any other matter. And when I say promoting, I mean not teaching. We don't want to keep kids from being taught history. We teach the Holocaust in class. We don't promote genocide. We don't promote racism, but kids learn about it. This is completely different. This is teaching kids that they shouldn't judge one another based off the color of their skin, whether they're oppressed or an oppressor, or one doesn't have a chance to achieve things because there's this inherent racism and the system stacked against them.
So how does part 2 fit into that?
Part 2 is just a clarification for the policy.
But in part 2, we are violating Title IX, we're violating.
How
civil
exactly
right-
does that violate?
Because they see, it's the new infer gender identity as a discriminatory
And
piece.
is this a law?
Title IX, yes,
No, what you're talking about, the
Yes.
gender identity.
yes.
This was passed by the legislature?
This is a federal law. Title IX is a federal law
No,
of
but the
non-discrimination.
portion that you're speaking of, was that passed by Congress?
Yes.
And when did this happen?
I don't know exactly. Again, this wasn't on, oh, so I'm making this up? Is that
No,
what you're telling
I'm
me?
just wondering if it's
If
an
we were-
executive
we can-
order or if
we
it's a
can-
law.
It's not an executive order. It was done. It's in there. It's in the Civil Rights Acts and Title IX. If we want to make.
And
if-
this,
If you're willing to step out and say, I want to make Marlington the battleground for this, and I want to put Marlington taxpayers on the lam for paying for the court cost, which will result in passing this.
will. I would counter that, Scott, by saying instead of making Marlington the battleground, it would make Marlington the beacon for other school districts that we probably have, the majority of which follow suit, but nobody else does it because nobody else does it. And as far as lawsuits, I can guarantee you, I will spearhead any effort that if there's any cost legally, we will gain support to fight any legal battles if
Is that
they-
in the
if they
minutes?
come. It's in the minutes.
Make sure that's in the
I think
minutes.
it's in the minutes.
So
I mean, that,
if you would, I did bring this to Ennis Britton, who is another law firm. And, I can paraphrase. He said, this is a horrible idea. He said, you're going to build an attorney a mansion in the Caribbean. I'm just repeating what he said. If you want him to write some things for you. We also consulted Neola, which is a group of attorneys. They will not back this. We would not get any, and we would have to change other policies, and then they would not back us legally on those policies. And we all deal with the federal government can be frustrating. I agree, but there's some, you have to be prepared. And we did talk about this extensively in a board meeting because I remember saying, I'm just the messenger. You stand to lose all your federal funds. You have to understand it doesn't have to be a Marlington person that sues over this policy. You personally would not have any insurance. The district would not have any coverage for that. So what I'm being told by the several attorneys I've talked to, and I'm just giving, again, I'm the messenger for you. It doesn't, I don't, there are other attorneys that have given the same, as a matter of fact, we had some attorneys at our BASA meeting, our state superintendent meetings, that are talking about these issues. They're not easy issues, but there is a reality in what we could very well face. So that's. for what it's
So
worth.
we should sit on our hands and do nothing because we might get sued. I was a firefighter and EMT for 9 years. My brothers are both paramedics. My brother-in-law is also a firefighter and a volunteer firefighter, I should say. And in that position, every time we responded to a medical call, we risked being sued.
But you were
and-
covered by insurance for that. You were
Not necessarily personally that you would be covered by insurance. No.
Our firefighters are, I know, but then you may not. That may be true. I don't know that.
Well, you could be sued
Yeah.
through the department and personally, and people still do the job because it's the right thing to do. And everybody can say what they want, but I'm just tired of everybody just rolling over under threat of lawsuit for, instead of standing up for something that they know is correct and right and the best route for our children. But
Well, I think there's many people at home have the same feeling about the CRT. They don't want it. So, I mean, that's where, I mean, I don't want it. You know, I think we need to really focus on that because, you know, that could potentially be, you know, that's our community, you know, and they have moral standards too. And we have to abide by their moral standards, just like we have to abide by what they want us to do on the board. You know, we have to follow those things, you know, and if that comes down to potentially doing that, I mean, eventually it's going to turn into a fight and someone's going to have to make a stand eventually. It could be us, it might be us, it might not be us. It's just we have to be prepared and be educated, know where we're going with this. So, you know, we just need to be, you know, vigilant and keep learning so we can know how to make better decisions with it. So that way, if it does come to that, we can all have an agreement on how we're going to do it. That way it benefits the kids. So, because we got to protect them. I'm sorry, Karen. It's about protecting all the kids, no matter today, tomorrow, or whenever.
I think the difference I'm hearing is, you know, making a personal decision versus the decision we're making for a community and what that could mean for us, the school district, and the, you know, the fallout from that regard. So it's different making a personal decision versus making this type of decision that could affect so many people.
I mean, think about the bath, you know, I don't know, we can talk about the bathrooms in the auditorium, you know, like you know, they're getting switched over, right? The bathrooms are now the unisex bathrooms in the auditorium, is that correct?
We talked about that and tried it for about a week. And I have to be honest, the high school administration worked with that. They let me know. And we're going to switch those back and make an alternative.
I mean, I think it's a good idea, but the way it's set up, we had to do a better job of getting that situated, so that way we had that, you know, because, you know.
are the locks going to be removed from those bathrooms?
We're going to go back to completely the way it was before.
Yeah.
So they'll be locked during the day, but then during an event, there'll be a men's room and a women's, and then they can lock. And we, you know, if a family needs, those are there for families too, if you're taking care of a loved one or whatever, and those are a good size for that. So, you know, we'll let adults be responsible in that regard.
So we're going to lock them during the school day?
Those are always locked during the school day, and that's for safety reasons, because you could go inside and then lock the door.
Well, that was my thing. It's like, it's a safety risk. So I know, in tying it all together, who knows where all this could go in? You know, someone can, you know, it's just someone could be saying like, well, I'm this way. You know, I don't know. You know, I can't remember bipolar or not bipolar, but I know that's a hospital term. Sorry.
Transsexual.
Thank you. And you know, it's just uncomfortable to talk about it. You know, and what if something happens in one bathroom and you know, and that wall's there and no one's behind that wall to see who's in there when the door's locked. You know, you never know what's going to happen. It's a safety risk too. You know, everything comes down to safety. You know, that's my concerns. I mean, it's all around, and that's the community's worried about safety for themselves too and their kids. So that's what we have to be vigilant and not just roll over. I think we just have to see where we're going with it and be vigilant and keep going on the task and learn, because that's the only way we're going to figure out our way around this to make it right.
So on the policy, I mean, what I'm hearing on this, people from the community are reaching out saying that they do not want CRT taught in the community. So this is not necessarily an individual decision for each board member. It's something we have to look at for our entire community. I'm going to call the roll on the first reading. This does not become policy until the second reading occurs. That will give Mr. Hagan and Dr. Mike an opportunity to talk to the attorneys, review different policies, see what can be networked together. And the message to these attorneys need to be, whoever we're dealing with, is that if this is what the board agrees to move forward with, the attorneys need to work with us to have that happen for our community, for our staff.
Or make any recommended
Or to make recommendations.
changes to the wording if necessary, clarification.
To make this work.
clarification.
So Dr. Main, please call the roll.
So I want to get this straight. So we're going to have a non-discrimination policy that is inherently discriminate in the last statement. And you're discriminating against transgender kids. I don't care if you don't understand transgenderism, you don't support it. I don't claim to understand it, but it's there, and this says you're gonna be male or female at what you were at birth. This is what you are. That's not how they're gonna relate. So we are having a non-discrimination policy that essentially says to kids, this is not adults, this is kids we're saying this to, we really don't want you here.
No.
Yeah, that's what it says.
No.
How many transgender people have you dealt with, Josh, in your life? Just out of curiosity.
Dealt with.
Met, talked to, kids. I've dealt with several college students going through this struggle. And to say, and especially in today's environment, they don't see themselves as the sex at birth, or even the sex maybe they may eventually end up in. And again, I don't understand this. I don't claim to. But I can't tell a kid, we don't want you. A public school can't sit here and say, we don't want you here.
I'm not reading it like he doesn't want them here. I
don't see how you.
The way I'm
you're
reading it is like
drawing
it's a
that.
way of protecting everyone to make sure even for them.
But it's not. It's saying biologically determined before birth.
Does not say that you cannot identify as whatever gender you want. It just says that in this policy, the terminology in it is referring to whether you identify as one gender or another, your sex scientifically is still determined by your biology.
You're saying that's what that's the part that is going to get struck down.
Okay.
Well, I think that's the
Well,
point.
again,
of
this
just
is the
having a
first reading.
discussion
We're
with the
going to call the
attorney.
roll on the first reading. Between the first reading and the second reading, Mr. Hagan, Dr. Scheffler, and whatever attorney he is working with, we'll go over this policy, compare it to our other policies, make sure nothing's in conflict, and that this policy doesn't discriminate or have a meaning that was not intended. So Dr. Main, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries?
No.
Dr. Mason?
No.
Mr. Mish?
Yes.
Passed 3-2.
New business impact group contract. Dr. Mike?
Get back to. Let's see. Okay. So as you know, we have a contract we have had for many years at Marlington with the Impact Group. You have before you the contract, their new contract, and that reflects the payment schedule. And the Impact Group, I think all of you know, helps us with all those, the newsletters you get, the I forget, what we want to change the name, the Marlington newspaper. They help us with sometimes with statements, looking with social media. They do a lot of communication things. So that's the Impact Group. Lots of schools in Northeast Ohio use the Impact Group.
Is there a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for the impact group contract for 2021-22 as shown in Exhibit A?
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion?
What was our previous amount for this?
I don't have that in front of me. It did go up a little bit, and I did talk to their head guy, and he said Marlington had not received an increase in a lot of years, and they just had to go up a little bit. I can get you.
I thought
Patty could get you
I
last
thought
year.
last year there was an increase as well.
Unless it may have been last year. I can get you the amounts. I actually, if memory, yeah, I better not say.
Okay.
It definitely went up since I've been here. I'm sometimes forget I've been here. This is my whole second year, so we'll get you that info.
So the cost is $48,000 for the year.
Correct, for the year.
And I guess if you could just go over the necessity of it, and is this an essential expense, how they're actually improving it. I just haven't seen a lot of responses on our webpage when things come up for example, incorrect in the newspaper, it'd be good to have a response on our website to correct some of the facts that aren't correct.
We can do that. I mean, unlike most school districts, we don't employ a communications person, so we kind of divide up those responsibilities. And, they do a lot of things with the Marlington News, as I mentioned, each building's newspaper. And I mean, we can ask them, some of it, we obviously we have to ask them to do, and if you want, they'll do more.
I mean, are we getting our money's worth?
Oh, I think this kind of organization is very expensive, and they give us a school rate, and they communicate, they get back to us right away. So I talked to them quite a bit over the last couple days, so I would say that we do.
I guess, is that something you could approach them about? For example, when something comes out incorrect in, for example, the Alliance Review, is that something they could put a statement on our website with the correct information to get the message out?
I don't think they would do that. I think that would be between us and the Alliance Review.
Well, we would have control of the website, our website. I mean,
we could, they would help us publish whatever we want on our website. As I see what you're saying.
Getting
Yeah,
the correct
yeah,
information out there,
yeah.
because things aren't always accurate in a publication that.
Yeah,
is not under our control.
absolutely, they could do that. And I think they've helped us with that before.
Is there any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries?
Yes.
Dr. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Mish?
Yes.
Passed, 5-0.
Next, I have for you there, out-of-state field trips. This is for our cross-country team. And this is not something new. I'm sure they missed last year because of the pandemic. These things are great opportunities for our kids. So I'm recommending this to you.
Is there a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for the following out-of-state field trips as shown in Exhibit B? Terre Haute, I believe that is Indiana,
Indiana,
not
yeah.
Texas as it's listed here.
Oh, well,
I think it's Indiana, isn't it?
it should be.
It says Indiana.
On
send
November
them to
13th,
Texas.
14th, and Lubbock, Texas, 11, 18, and 19.
So moved.
Yeah, mine says Indiana, just
Second.
for correction.
I'm sorry, who moved?
Scott.
Is there any discussion?
Who seconded?
I said it.
Okay.
Okay.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries?
Yes.
Dr. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Mish?
Yes.
Passed, 5-0.
Treasurer's agenda, Dr. May.
Okay, thank you. The first agenda item is to approve the minutes of the board meeting for September 16th.
Is there a motion to approve the following meeting minutes as presented in Exhibit C, September 16th, 2021?
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries?
Yes.
Dr. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Mish?
Yes.
Passed, 5-0. The second item is to approve the financial reports for September as attached.
Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's recommendation for the financial reports and overview of receipts and expenditures for the period ending September 30th, 2021, as shown in Exhibits D, E, and F?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Dr. Bain, could you give us an overview?
I can. Thank you. The first one is the cash reconciliation to show that we have reconciled for the month of September. The second attachment is the checks that were issued. If you, on the third page, if you look at the Wilson Language Training Corp., this is an ESSER, one of our ESSER expenditures for curriculum. It's the last one that was reconciled. There. The next piece is the $62,652. That includes the abatement piece for elementaries. And I know I've been asked about our last gown and Marlington bill. That is also included there, $23,250.38. The last
Do you have a total for that completely?
total for that was their last bill.
Was that, yeah, the last bill, so all over, how much was that? What was that?
Total spent?
Total spent, yeah.
Yes.
100,000?
100,000?
I'd have to check on that.
Close to it?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
The next one, the next attachment shows our financial report of our cash fund balances. Again, you can look at receipts and expenditures for month to date versus expenditures and receipts for the year. I know some of you have been asking about 070. That is under that current fund balance of $1,035,917.95. And close to the top is our permanent improvement. Our current balance is $996,267.12. However, we do have encumbrances on both of those. If you look at the 467, second from the bottom, you'll see the student health and wellness. As we discussed last year, we did not spend the whole amount. We are going to spend the rest of it this year. That is also going to save us from bringing that over into the general fund this year, because that fund has gone away. Just to explain a little bit of that. The last one, you'll see the negative balances because these are federal funds and we have to expend first and then get reimbursed.
Question on the Environmental Support Network, the payment of $62,652. Is that being paid out of the Capital Projects Fund?
Correct.
That was for the abatement?
Correct.
And that is being paid from the 070, not out of the general fund?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
For the abatement of the fallen material, right?
I'm sorry.
It's for the asbestos abatement of the hallway that fell, right?
Yes, there was a hallway, there was a
Fell and
drain,
loose.
a couple other things.
Right. But we still have another quote on the rest of Lexington.
Yeah, for complete amount.
There may be some outstanding invoices, but.
No. It's not, it's abatement, but it's abatement only for that one part.
Correct, that's
Yes.
correct,
Yes,
The asbestos is still in the ceilings and the other parts.
correct.
Correct.
Whatever hasn't been abated, yes.
correct.
And the rest of that is sealed and,
Correct.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, and just for a point of clarity, when they put in the new doors, they knew there was asbestos there, and that needs to be repaired. That'll be done by tomorrow or Saturday, latest Monday. But all the hallways and all that are repaired. And I don't know that we have a bill for that one yet, for the doors.
So you had mentioned, though, $60,000 so far. Is that, you're including that, or is that what you're saying it's coming in and
That will
thinking?
be in addition. I don't know how much, I don't think we've received a bill for that yet.
I believe it was
Or
more
did we
towards 80,000 total,
total?
84,000. Yes, this is just the checks we've paid out this last month, but the total so far that we have, that we know of is 84,000.
80 what?
84,000.
4. Okay.
84 total, not 84 more. Is that what you're
Correct.
saying?
No,
Total.
so far.
So far, that we're aware of.
On the 070 fund, I just want to go through that because something that I'm hearing that I think is a misconception is that, the repairs to the 3 elementary buildings have been paid for by Nexus funds. And so what I'm seeing here, the total that has come in so far, is it right to say it's this 1,875,000? Or, I'm sorry, 1,875,000?
The, if you look on the FinSum, I believe that's the third one that was attached. We have a fund that is called 004.
Okay.
004 is our lease purchase funds that is paying for that project.
Okay.
When those are depleted, as we signed for the 4.7, we will need to take the rest out of 070. So that's not reflected in that 070. Basically, it's the abatement, and then you'll see the lease repayment on there of the interest.
Okay. So bottom line, though, we have not received enough Nexus monies to already have paid for the cost. Is that correct?
It's a lease purchase.
No.
I'm just saying, the thought is that, what we hear is that people think that Nexus money is already, check was written, Nexus money paid for those repairs. That is incorrect.
No.
I don't think people were thinking that because we took out a lease purchase to pay for this.
A lot of people don't know
And
that.
it's, as the Nexus money comes in, it will be making those payments and hopefully be paying this off early because the Nexus funds are a great deal more than what the payments actually are.
Yeah. Yes. Nexus funds comes into general fund. We transfer them out to capital projects. And then once they're transferred out of capital projects, we use that for anything other than the Plug Smart, because that's what we paid a lease, or that's what we signed for, was Plug Smart in that lease purchase.
In the lease purchase.
And then we'll pay the payments and any interest payments out of that 070, once we've transferred those funds over.
And that fund was created, I believe, in 2018, correct? To move the Nexus funds into that fund?
That was before me, but I
Yeah.
believe you're pretty close.
That's what I thought.
And the purpose of that, it was done under the advisement of Bricker and Eckler. And that was because this is basically temporary money that is going to deplete over time. They recommended it be moved into capital projects used on things such as repairing buildings so that it doesn't affect our state foundation money as drastically. So that was a planning
right.
method. It was done by a previous board.
And we did that, again, with the knowledge we knew at that time. At this point, it does affect our state because our local share is based upon our total valuation, which is 100% of that pipeline, which is making us look like we are a bit wealthier than we really are.
Right, because
So
we're only
we're
getting like
paying
38% of it or something like that, right?
Yeah.
38% is all we're getting,
Yes.
of the 100% that everyone thinks we're getting.
That's so far all we're getting. I mean,
Yeah.
the-
And it could be
the
less,
rest
though.
is disputed.
Right, and it could be less.
I don't think they have any more rights to appeal for a different value than what they already appealed, so
Well, that's a court thing, and that's February, right? So we have to wait till February.
Supposed to be.
Right.
They
keep bumping it back. That's what I'm saying, like, we can keep waiting and waiting and waiting, and here,
Yeah,
that's,
but that's just the unchallenged portion that we'd be waiting on.
Yeah.
The approved amount, or not the approved, the uncontested amount, we're still going to be receiving.
but that's a concern, because as Patty's saying, you can't just, that's two different that's two different views of where the money's at, You just, if it's not there, it's not gonna be there.
Well, we're not spending the money we're not getting on that contested portion. That is not even, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not budgeting that anywhere.
No.
We are not budgeting that, but that is part of our formula, is that 100% of what we would be collecting, because they're taking into
In the state size.
The state size, when it's only 38.
The state counts that 100%.
100, right, exactly.
Which
Yes.
is
And then the
totally
formula,
another
that's what I'm saying, the formula
unfair.
is one thing, but what's really happens, the
The
actual
state.
is way different.
Right.
And we are hurt, we're one of the only districts in the state hurt by the new funding formula
Mm-hmm.
because of the Nexus pipeline.
I would think a lot of ones, are we working with the Pipeline Coalition that
We are.
we belong to? I mean, there's supposed to be a lobbying group for
Yep,
us.
yep,
Yes,
yep.
yes.
Yes. And Becky Prinzhorn has been our cheerleader. And I'm going to put a plug in, Alan Harold has been our cheerleader as well, our county auditor.
Okay.
As he keeps us updated, he sends us forms, we often pass those to you. He came and talked to the superintendents that are involved in Nexus or Rover Pipeline. So we're fighting to
Oh,
get
right.
what they told us, at least more than 38%, so.
Yep.
But that's up to the courts.
But I also want to clarify, Nexus it's not like Nexus is writing us a check. That's part of our tax revenue that's
Correct.
coming in
Correct.
to our general fund.
Yes.
Right, but it's over and above what our
Yes.
voted millage was.
It's part of
Because
our.
they paid
It's-
it, they paid it over and above what the real estate tax was because it came in as a public utility.
It does
So-
come in as public utilities, yes. Yes.
All right, on the financial reports are the ones on the table. Will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gabrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries?
Yes.
Dr. Mason?
Abstain.
Mr. Mish?
Yes.
Passed, 4, 1 abstain. The next item on the list is a transfer of funds. The first one is to recommend the motion to approve an interfund transfer from General Fund 001 to Termination Benefits 035 in the amount of $130,000. And the second one is to recommend the motion to approve an interfund transfer between general fund to capital projects. This is the nexus that we're referring to in the amount of $853,892.93.
Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's recommendation for the two interfund transfers as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Dr. Main, could you give us an update on the payments on the lease purchase? We had talked about paying, the board had talked about paying additional principal,
Yes.
and I know you have to hold back for the December payment. If you give us the amount of the December payment and how much additional principal we could pay at this time.
Okay. If you look under the financial update, you'll see the attachments for 070. For the fiscal year, we started out with $1,105,576.95. You will see the receipt, and this is fiscal year. Okay, so you'll see the receipt that we're asking to transfer from our general fund into the 070. Next, as $853,893, and that's just rounded off, that we're transferring tonight. You'll see that $84,409 is for abatement. You will see that we have a payment that is encumbered of $714,742.90, and that is our payment for this fiscal year. We are approximating, might be a little under, might be a little over, 200,000 over the 4.7. We're looking at, because of legal fees, the change orders, there was something else on there. But anyways, we're approximating 200,000. So after it's all said and done, that's $914,742.90. So at that point, I need direction from the board as to what you would like to do with this and how much you would like to make that payment or whatever you're deciding to do with that.
Okay, so if I'm, the estimate for fiscal year '22, the bottom line, 1.786 million, what does that represent?
Where's that at?
The bottom line?
Oh,
It says
that's how much we're transferred in, and then if you go from there and take out how much we've encumbered with our payments that are due in this fiscal year, and then an additional 200,000.
So
We're
what's
gonna be
the,
down to
what's the
900.
actual amount that you have after, you said that the change orders in the asbestos was 284,000 is what you're estimating. The actual payment that's due in December, the payments that have already been made, what's the balance in the account that's available to pay in next year?
$914,742.90.
You had that right on the top of your head.
And where's
I have
that
it
on
written
this
down.
chart?
I'm sorry.
Where's that figure on this chart?
It is not on this chart because the 200,000 has not been encumbered yet, but we know it's coming.
Will that be on your next report?
Depends on when Plug Smart gets completely finished. I would think it's probably going to be
Well, they
one more month.
They have till December to
Yeah.
be, when they're supposed to be completely finished.
Yeah.
So,
That's from the original contract,
in the
correct?
contract,
It
yes.
So
says
about
they have that.
9,
Okay. So they have that much time to get all these
They
buildings
do.
done completely, is till December.
I would say, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So you have about 900,000 to do what you
900,000
want.
available to pay additional principal.
Okay.
And the next payment wouldn't be due till June, so you'll get the February payment to cover, the next payment's due in June after December, is that correct?
It is due in June, yes.
Patty, have you thought about it? I mean, as far as, or do you have a recommendation regarding that additional principal? Or whether it should be paid for additional principal, or have you, I don't know if you've evaluated that yourself and thought it through, or?
Yeah, I was going to ask what you thought your thought was to do with it. I mean, you're the treasurer. Where do you think it needs to go?
That's a board decision, but you could move that. You can use that for other things that we're going to need. You can use that for your lease payment, an additional lease payment. I would have to check to see if we could move that back into the general fund, if that's an option you're looking at.
We
Does
have a
it-
board resolution in place to pay this down with the Nexus funds as they come in. So my recommendation is to continue with that. The Nexus money is earmarked for this based on a couple different resolutions. So it needs to get paid. We fixed up the schools. They're in good condition for our students now. We need to pay this down as quickly as possible. It does have a 1.8% interest rate, and there's no prepayment penalty at all to pay this off early. And there's no downside to paying this off.
Well, I don't disagree. Paying off is a good thing, but if we need to use it, we need to be able to use it where we have to do it with it. You know, if we have other bills that come up.
If there was an emergency situation, the board potentially could pass a resolution to do that.
I just hate
if
to
that
pass-
was a necessity.
But I would just hate to throw that money right off the bat and back into it, and then we don't have it to pay whatever we need to do, like a repair or something like that all of a sudden comes to be like $200,000 out of nowhere. You know, you just never know. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just never know. So why would you just dump it into something where payments are for back on the interest? Are we making our payments okay with it? Everything is on time? There's nothing, behind to put that extra payment right off the bat?
Correct.
I mean, you
That
might as
was
well,
the
and
plan
if
to
we're
get-
worried about having money to make payroll eventually and other things that are going on and are for future, this is money we need to have on back, just
So
on the back
you're
burner.
recommending taking a portion of that for like a security?
Like a safety net. I think we used to have a safety net all the time that we would have, and we discussed this, Patty, about having like a money on the back burner just in case something came up, like an emergency little cash net, and we don't really seem to have that now, right?
You have, You also have a choice to wait and in the spring, decide at the end of the year what you want to pay. It's your decision. Whatever you guys decide, I'll do.
It's something that doesn't have to be like decided tonight or something like, or,
Next
just.
month, we'll need to have a decision on that, right, for the December payment?
The December payment is already,
Oh, okay.
the
You
December
have no option on
and
the December.
Right, that's already ready to go.
December's just-
those payments for this year is already encumbered.
Right.
Okay.
We encumbered those. So that was already taken out with that 714,000.
The board resolution's in place to pay down additional principal. It's costing the district money if you don't pay it off according to the board resolution, because
Right,
you'll
that's-
have the money out for a longer period of time.
The interest rate on that money that you're holding on to is, there's a cost with that as well, yeah.
And the Nexus money does diminish a little bit each year, so if you're going to pull this out and use it for something else, you're going to have a plan on how you're going to pay this off.
Well, Matt's not talking about using it for something else. He's talking about holding on to it in case something comes.
Right, and then if we don't need it, then we pay it off to pay
And
interest
you're
off.
talking in regards to
Like a safety.
mainly that project,
Yeah.
those buildings that
Correct.
were worked on.
I mean, if we have it right now, why dump it right back into it? In case something else comes up, we have it to use it, to spend it, to keep the repairs going that need to happen. And then, come springtime, when we have extra money from it, dump it back into the interest. Let's be physically responsible with it. Instead of just being erroneously dumping money, then we're like, well, we have no money for this. So that's $999,000 right there, right off the bat.
Well,
depends, yeah.
Depending on how much money you want to hold versus the interest rate, you got to do a cost.
Right. I mean, we could
risk-benefit
even
analysis
just
of that.
even do half or something. I mean, that's what I'm saying. We just be a little more vigilant with what we want to do with it, and just dumping it right back into it right off the bat with all the things that are happening. I mean, look at how the repairs went in Lexington. One thing after another, they found the abatement, and that was $84,000. I mean, and then we got more things that are
In the
coming
grand
yet.
scheme of things, $284,000 on two buildings of that many repairs, I think is pretty good. And if we look at hindsight, I think Dr. Schreffler's recommendation to do both buildings at once was very beneficial, because we got locked in at pre-COVID prices for building. If we had spread it out like the board originally wanted to, I think.
I'm not arguing about that. I'm
we'd
just
have had a
saying we need to have the money
significant
to.
increase.
I'm just saying if we have that right now, we should be wise with it instead of just putting it right back into the interest.
Well, I just did some math for, like, let's say we hold a $200,000 reserve of that. It's going to cost us $3,600 a year to have that available for that, so.
Well, that's why we have a treasurer.
What's that?
That's why we have a treasurer.
Yeah.
So do you need a motion for any amount to pay, or you will let us know what
Correct.
you recommend the amount to be paid on the, how do you want that handled?
If you are going to pay it at this point, I would recommend that you pay like a $714,742. If you're going to wait until spring, then we can relook at it. But yes, we'll need a motion. We'll need to transfer the funds first, which is the motion.
714, I thought, was the amount that was actually due. That's not the amount that's due?
For this year.
Right. So you won't need a motion for that.
No. I only need for any extra that you're going to pay. And you have approximately 900,000.
Right.
At this point.
So are you comfortable with half of that being paid now and the other half after we know what all the final expenses are?
I mean, I'm okay. I'm okay. What do you think, Dr. Mason? Does that sound reasonable?
In case something else.
So something else happens. Karen?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so this motion needs approved, and then you need a second motion for additional principal, is that correct?
Yes, I believe the motion on the floor is for a transfer of funds. If we could go
Okay.
ahead and do that one, and then
Yes.
we'll make that.
So the motion on the floor that we're voting on is the transfer of funds from the 001 to the 035 for $130,000 and 001 to 070 for $853,892.93. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries?
Yes.
Dr. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Mish?
Yes.
Passed 5-0.
And then in regard to the principal, just so I clearly understand what you said, the 900,000 is available after you pay the 284,000 and after you pay the December payment of 714,000. You would have 900,000 left in that fund if there's no other expenses. Is that correct?
This includes the 714 for this fiscal year payment. So yes, it's
December.
December and June. We encumber it at the
Oh, that's
beginning.
December and June.
Yes. It's encumbered at the beginning of the year.
Okay. But the receipts don't reflect what we'll be getting
For spring,
in, does that reflect what you're getting in the spring?
no. If you look over to estimated for FY20, the last column shows what we're estimating that we will have. So we are estimating another 800,000. However, we know that they did another appeal, so that may
Be less.
a little bit less.
Okay.
But I wouldn't think more than a couple hundred thousand.
Okay, so is there a motion to pay additional principal for $450,000 on the lease purchase agreement with Consumers Bank?
So moved?
Second.
I'm sorry, who moved?
Me.
Josh?
Okay, and who
And
second?
Matt?
I did.
Okay, and you said 450,000, correct?
450,000.
Yep.
Okay,
Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mr. Mish,
Yes.
passed 5-0. The last one is revenue and appropriations revision. And I hope I brought my copy. Do you have that up on yours? Yes. These are just changes in our revenue and appropriations. Let's see. If you look at the first one, it is a change with some funds over under 1028, the column with 1028. It shows that transfer, it shows an incoming revenue of 130,000 to 035, which we just transferred. The other ones are just adjustments to grants where we did our final expenditure report, and now we know more information, so we're just aligning that. Where's the next one?
Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's recommendation for the amended revenue and appropriations as presented in Exhibits F and G?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries?
Yes.
Dr. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Mish?
Yes.
Passed. 5-0. The last, the next one is the donations for this month. And that is attached. We had one from First Christian Church.
6,000.
Okay. Yes, for
Yep.
That was from the, that was
$6,603.25.
a class of 21.
Oh, the class quote.
Oh, yes.
First
Sorry.
Christian,
Whoa.
they're
That
200.
was the first
Yeah,
one.
that was First
correct.
Christian.
From class of
2021, that'd be
treasurer
awesome,
there.
right?
And that's going to the class of 2025. The second one is for the First Christian Church, and that one is in the amount of $200 for the care closet.
Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's recommendation for the donations for September 2021 as presented in Exhibit H?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? The board wishes to thank our generous donors. We appreciate that. And please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries?
Yes.
Dr. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Mish?
Yes.
Passed 0. The last one is an update. We've received some questions about the grants, about the projects, so I wanted to take a few minutes just to do some updates of where we are with those grants and those projects. The first one attached is the Corona Relief Fund, and the purpose of those funds was to assist the districts with additional COVID-related costs. The total funding was $117,047.51. This went to purchase additional curriculum access for students, as well as our health and safety supplies, such as our sanitizer and our shields and our thermometers, and additional nursing support. That was expended in FY21. The next one was the broadband connectivity grant, and that was also to assist districts. It was to assist districts in funding student connectivity needs. So that was $151,466.16. That was used for iPad devices. That moved us ahead to get us one-to-one computing with all our students. Those iPads were also had connectivity access inside them for students that may have a difficult time getting internet connection at home. We also had some charges for cellular service, which came along with those computers. Technology infrastructure, again, I think I spoke to this earlier, access points that not only expanded the capabilities of students to get onto the network, but also expanded area that they could get on. That was expended in FY21. The third one is ESSER 1 round of funds. The purpose of those funds were to assist districts with the additional COVID-related expenses, and as you can see, we had quite a bit additional expenses with things. Our total funding was $394,225.31. Those were used to purchase keyboards, went along with iPads, and also for cases to make those iPads more portable for students carrying them back and forth. It also went again for some of those network infrastructure and access points that they were getting a bit old, and we needed to get better capability, build that infrastructure. If you look at that next page, all that was expended in FY21 also. ESSER 2, that was the second round of COVID funds. These were, again, to assist districts with those related costs to COVID. It was $1,771,443.47. We used a big portion of that, if you can see, on our staffing for that year. And if you look at that, that's where, I'm not saying that's the only thing. We had the administrative team sat down and went through all kinds of expenses, but that was the big boost there, was getting that to pay for some of those general fund staffing and benefits. At the bottom of the budget page, you'll see that ESSER 2 grants assisted and ended up helping us in those first two lines, and there you will get about $1.2 million. Okay, those staff members came back on this year. That was a one-time thing. Okay, our ARP ESSER, which is our ESSER 3. The purpose of these funds was to prevent, prepare for, or respond to COVID-19. The expenditures came with some guidelines. Must be allowable, reasonable and necessary, support returning students, and promote equity. That total funding was $3,981,236.18. I believe the plan was presented to you. It's up on the website, but I thought you'd like the budget detailed breakdown of that. Our planned uses is to include salaries and benefits for some of our current staffing. We had an additional tutor to address the learning loss that students may have incurred due to COVID. A big portion of this will go to summer school. That was, I believe that was $100,000, or pretty close to $100,000. Online program, this is another opportunity for us to get some professional development dollars to help with teachers responding to different needs of students, as well as our computer and iPad refresh comes out of this, which all of those expenses will come back in after this is over. So we will no longer have those dollars to continuously refresh our student devices, as well as our teacher devices. It also, as I spoke before, we're talking about technology infrastructure. I spoke with Ben. We have a lot of servers that are getting old, and this is an opportunity to go ahead and incur those costs at this time, build that infrastructure, instead of in 3 or 4 years, we're paying those again out of general fund or another fund. So the relief for general fund at this point is probably about $600,000. Now remember, treasurers are very conservative. I'm not going to tell you it could be 700, but somewhere in that area of 600,000, okay? And this will be used over the next period of 3 years.
Would you say over 3 years? Is that what you said?
Yes. I don't know if I mentioned curriculum. As Dr. Mike had mentioned before, we are lacking in some areas of curriculum, so we're also using that at this time. Over the next few years, we're looking at curriculum that will benefit those learning losses that students might have incurred. Questions about that? I'll call it, again, out of those funds, our general fund saw a revenue over expenditures of 1.2 million. So you see that we have had a lot of added costs. And again, we can talk about the supply chain and, the expense. I mean, we're seeing that in our personal lives. We're seeing that it's hard to get employees. It's hard to get. We've had to increase over this year. We've had to increase our costs, how much we're paying, just to be competitive. So that's something to keep in mind as we move forward.
No, and part of the ESSER 3, when you said that portion was towards learning loss, wasn't it about 800,000 of that was required to be benchmarked to that exactly?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And that will be our, well, we could pick anything. That can be our existing staff. That could be those extra tutors we had to hire for those learning losses. We still haven't found two. So we may never be able to hire the extra ones. I feel sorry for them trying to find staffing, people to fill those positions. So, and also it could be we're looking at curriculum. That's a big part of being able to go remote at the flip of a switch.
Yeah.
We just have to be prepared for moving forward. Any questions on those? And I just wanted to quickly show the second area I wanted to look at is the Marlboro project. I'm getting questions on how much did the Marlboro project, the very first project, cost us. And if you look at that, the total related expenses was $1,398,970.62. Now, this is not including those items that we included in Project 2 for Marlington,
The
or
window-
Marlboro,
The windows and doors at Marlboro.
okay? So that will be included in Project 2.
Two.
With
That's on the next
Lexington,
paper, right?
Correct. So if you look at that, there's a breakdown of a cost estimate of what we think it's going to be 4.9 million. That's with all of our legal fees. Finance. The finance fee was the other one I was trying to think of. That's included, and also the abatement. And then you'll see the change orders. And that's where we come up with that 200,000 that I said we really need to save back from the 070
Yep.
to pay that overage.
And there's something with heating now, some heating issue that we had in that update that will be added into that too, the 20,000.
At Marlboro,
At Marlboro.
there are,
The packaged HVAC units.
yes, there are three units
One
that
of,
have needed replaced.
yeah, one of them has a bad heat exchanger.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That's correct. Right now, that's the one that caused us the problems.
Yeah.
That I believe we've talked about taking that out of PI funds. If we want to take that out of 070, that's an option also.
Don't you have some Nexus funds in the permanent improvement now,
We do.
right? What, 100,000 or something like that?
I had these all in order, but they're all jumbled now, so I apologize for having to.
Josh's
Real.
fault.
What do I do?
Got it out of order.
Our PI is broken down into different funds. One is for the Nexus funds we transfer in, which again is part of that tax revenue, so they have to pay the PI and also the general fund portions. But also, we have some set aside for roof, we have some set aside for paving. So if you look on your FinSum from, that'll give you the total amount of that PI. And that was in the financial reports. And if I can go back to that, I can show you where that is. And if you want a further breakdown, I can give you that. It is the PI of the 003, second one on the very last attachment on the financial reports. So our current fund balance is 996,000. We have some current encumbrances. Unencumbered is about 870,000. Again, some of this is set aside for the turf, okay, which is brought in by athletic boosters. So there's a piece of that. Then there's a piece that is dedicated to our pavement.
And that's the repayment of the loan for the turf?
Correct.
Okay.
So the PI generates 500,000 a year, plus the Nexus funds that come in on top of the PI that come directly into the 003 account, is that correct?
I don't have those figures, but that's pretty close.
Approximately?
Yes,
So there would be Nexus funds in there to help subsidize any additional repairs throughout the district, is that correct?
correct. You would just have to, I would just need guidance if you want it taken out of PI or if you want it taken out of 070.
Well, there's 870 unencumbered that you haven't budgeted for then, right?
Correct, that's unencumbered, yes.
So do you need a motion for
For,
paying for the heaters?
not at this time.
Okay.
We'll bring that, not even for sure. At this time, it's going to be enough to bring it to the board, but
I think it was,
I mean, I think the Nexus money is, that is moved into the 070 account is specifically for the large repair project, not the ongoing maintenance, so.
and we were, Dr. Mike and I had actually previously discussed to take that out of PI. If
I would think that
that's,
would be a good
if
decision.
that's your guidance, then we'll move forward with that. Okay, and that's,
Do you need any action on any of this, or that's just presentation of backup
That's-
information?
Just presentation, I've had a lot of questions, and I thought it would be good if I just approached all the questions I'm getting.
I appreciate you putting all this together, it's very helpful. Any further questions on the financial reports? Dr. Mike, personnel?
Okay. Good evening, again. We have one classified hire, and that is James Cogan, custodian. He'll start on step 3, and his effective hire date was 10/7/21. Right now, just so you know, James is at the high school.
Is there a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for the classified hire for 21-22 school year pending verification pending satisfactory credentials as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Are we replacing him where he's at now?
I
Is there a
didn't hear.
replacement, is there a replacement for he's taken this job? Is there a replacement for him?
No, he's brand new. to
Oh, he's
us.
Brian, okay, all right.
There was a resignation
Yeah,
last month.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And he
didn't know
is
that-
replacing that.
Replacing
open
that
position.
guy, yeah. Okay,
I believe that's what,
you're correct. Yep.
okay.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries?
Yes.
Dr. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Mish?
Yes.
Passed 5-0.
The next are the supplemental hires I have for this time. They're mostly coaches, and some of them are volunteers. You have that list there.
Is there a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for the following supplemental hires pending verification of satisfactory credentials and BCI FBI checks as required for the 21-22 school year as presented on your agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? I just had a question on the faculty manager.
Yes.
Is that my first question, is that a new position for the district, or is that a replacement?
It's not new, it's in the contract.
So, who are they replacing?
I don't know that we had it last year because of COVID. Because these people are people that do a lot of things that, mainly football and basketball. But I can ask for that information.
Is that facility manager? Not
So-
faculty?
Well, the contract, and most districts do call it faculty manager. It's like an extra person for athletic events.
So I think we've always had a facility manager, so is this,
Ticket manager, or I mean, that,
right?
This is, well, I think ticket manager is a separate stipend.
So this is not an additional position?
No, it's not an additional, it's in the contract.
And we only need, it's only an 80%
So
position?
three people share it. Leslie Pierce and Maggie Collins, we've already, and I didn't write it down.
So
Mr.
we already
Miller
have
told me who the
20%.
20%. And as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure he said that's been a long-standing person doing that 20%. They've already been approved, according to Mr. Miller.
Any further questions? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick?
Yes?
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries?
Yes.
Dr. Mason?
yes.
Mr. Mish?
Yes.
Passed 5-0.
The next list, we approve our own classified subs. You know, the ESC takes care of our certified subs, except for a couple that are in a different category. These are our classified subs.
Is there a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for the following classified substitute list as presented below?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick?
Yes?
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries?
Yes.
Dr. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Mish?
Yes.
Passed 5-0.
And the last one there are our student workers, and these are the workers that work with Chris Marmon in our CBI program. So those are student, and those are unique to 2021, 22.
Is there a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for the following student employees for the 21-22 school year as shown in Exhibit Q?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? And are these all paid employees that are paid by the district?
Those are paid by the district and they make a student wage, yes. As part of the CBI. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say we get a little bit of reimbursement for them, I believe. But I'll get that information. But yes,
check.
they're paid through payroll. It's like their job. It's the old what when we went to school they called work study.
Please call the roll.
Okay. Mrs. Gabrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries?
Yes.
Dr. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Mish?
Yes.
Passed 5-0.
The next Board of Education meeting will be October.
November.
This one down here, November 18th, 2021 at 6:30 PM. We had discussed, I think, last meeting about having a special meeting prior to that. Is that something the board wishes to do? And would we have enough information to have additional conversation about the levy?
Yes, we will have something by then. Again, we're working hard, and we're hoping that we can present to the committee at the end of next week, the forecast.
And the forecast will be presented at that meeting, is that correct?
Correct.
And it just has to be approved before the end of the month? end of
Correct.
November.
Yes.
And also, Patty, did we need to take any action on that gas purchase contract anytime in the near future? I know it's for 2023, but, I mean, I don't know how those prices are going to look here.
We can circle back around
Okay.
and do that. I think that there was apprehension due to how much gas we're
Yes.
going to use. We do know that now they report it as one site. Marlington is one site. But again, Marlboro did go down in gas and went up in electric. So we could look at how that affects us, and then we can circle back around and re-examine that.
We'll be expecting the same thing at Lexington and Washington this winter for the gas.
For the
go
gas to
down.
go
To
The
down.
gas should go
Yes.
down.
Right. Do we need an earlier start time than 6:30 if we're going to have, like, the community discussion about this?
We would, yes. The special
Yeah, right.
meeting, I don't know, 5 o'clock?
Special or
5:30?
work?
Well,
Would be a work
I think
session, would
they
it not
call
be?
Okay.
Do you designate here between work session or special meeting? Is it all the same?
I mean,
or-
it's the same thing.
Yeah, either
Special-
one, either way.
I mean, a
it's-
work session is a special meeting.
Yeah,
I guess you can
correct.
call it-
Yep.
Call it whatever.
Some different districts do that
Yeah.
differently. I don't think you can vote at that meeting.
So how much
Work
time
session.
do you need to present the financial
You want
information?
an hour and a half? You want an hour with a little break?
So we're going to present the forecast before then, and then I would say that we need a half an hour to present the forecast.
Do you want to present the forecast at the special meeting and then discuss the levy situation, or how would you?
The committee will already have the forecast.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to share that out, and then I would prefer if we actually do the forecast in the regular meeting.
I think, yeah, you think you probably should.
But we will have that information with the figures in front of us. It just won't be approved until until the board decides that night.
Okay, so 5 or 5:30, that's the question. Which do you want? How much time
guys-
do you need?
I would think a half an hour discussion of the forecast, and then you guys, maybe some more time, maybe
So an
5,
hour, 5:30 then.
So about
Five-
5:30?
give
5:30.
you time to discuss about the levy.
Okay. Okay,
All right.
we'll
Is
put it in motion.
there a motion to adjourn?
So, second,
Who moved?
Karen.
Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick? Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries?
Yes.
Dr. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Mish?
Yes.
Passed 5-0.
Thank you,
Thank you very
everybody.
much, everyone.